Here we go, as it is transfer portal time in Tennessee and also a little bit of opt out time. I want to discuss how that affects the Orange Bowl. As Chris and I have talked about opt outs and the way they're viewed now as opposed to 10 years ago, but now we have some names to kind of attach to that. So let's get right into it. Please hit that like button. We greatly appreciate that. It opens us up to more Tennessee fans that certainly want to keep track of what's happening with the Vols and check out LandryFootball.com. Man, you're going to know more about football than anybody in your circle. I promise you that. LandryFootball.com. But Chris Landry joins us now on Chalk Talk, brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue. So please hit that like button if you haven't subscribed. Chris, we have some names of Tennessee players that will opt out, and I thought one was a little bit understandable. Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, he had the ankle injury, he had the tightrope surgery, and he will not play in the Orange Bowl. I get it. I think I'm probably like you. I'm old school. I don't like opting out, but I do get it with a guy who's dealt with an injury throughout the season.
Well, I think I guess my best advice is that we need to accept the fact that it has changed, and I think it's a byproduct of when we made the changes to where the bowl games, other than the playoff bowl games, were marginalized or minimalized in terms of importance. That players were going to opt out, and I look at bowl games and I'm going to watch them all, but I'm looking at it for different reasons. Meaning, I look at the players that are in the bowl game that are coming back next year, which we don't know for certain if everybody's coming back because they still could be some transfer portal entrance off your favorite team after the bowl games. But you pretty much know going into the bowl games, the guys that are not coming back, whether they're going to the draft or, they're transferring, at least if the bowl game, while it's important and you want to win it, if you look at it as kind of the getting experience for next year, I think that's what the practice and the bowl games that are the non-playoff games, that's what they're for now. So I think if you kind of accept that as the way to look at it, I think you can. It's more palatable. I mean, we got folks from UAB and Miami of Ohio and people like that are opting out. That are smaller schools. It's just the way it's going, and I think winning the bowl game is great. You got an extra trophy in your trophy case, but it's just to me about maybe looking at players and looking at how things potentially might be on an individual player basis. What you got to look forward to next year. That's the best thing that the bowl games do at this point.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't look at it like I used to, like you're giving up on your team. Now, if this were the college football playoff, that would be something entirely different. I think we can both agree on that. But with Cedric Tillman, he decides to opt out of the Orange Bowl. So does Jalen Hyatt. He's going to opt out of the Orange Bowl, and it's kind of odd for a moment. He hired NIL representation, and some people not only thought he would play in the Orange Bowl, that he might return for another season. Clearly, as the Fred Blitnikoff, he's ready to go to the NFL from an athletic standpoint. How would you compare those two guys and maybe project where they would land from an NFL perspective?
Well, both are going to make it. I think Cedric's a little bit more polished and nuanced as a route runner. Hyatt's just a little bit more vertical speed and playmaking ability on the vertical routes. Um, again, considering what we just talked about, these are guys that they're not going to be with you next year. And once they decide they're not going to be with you, it does make some sense to say, well, let's look at other guys. I mean, uh, it kind of makes it, again, these bowl games more of an exhibition. But I kind of look at it, and say, well, this is what said team is. These are the guys that they're more than likely going to be lining up with next year. As you mentioned, as we just talked about, it used to be this was the last game for these players to play for their school, and now it's more like the first game of next year and looking ahead. And I think that's what everybody's thinking. So the guys that are pro prospects are transferring. They're to me, I just think that it's probably better that they step aside. If that's what they're going to focus on that. And as a coach, I'd rather be this is who I'm going to practice, who I'm going to develop and get ready for the game and beyond, because that's what you want to put your energies and your focus into. I'd certainly like the senior players to play, but I understand it. Those 2 guys are gonna play at the next level and be good players. Um, where exactly they're gonna go, I'm to hold off on that until everybody declares and we know and we start to stack them. But I think both of those guys have got, good skill sets.
Darnell Wright to me is going to be, this is my opinion, I don't know it top to bottom, but is going to be one of the better pickups of the draft. I've talked to several Tennessee players. They say he's one of the most naturally athletic players on the team, do back springs and all that stuff at 330 pounds, which is insane. Um, he's shown that he can left and right. But let me get your, as a scout, your thoughts on Darnell Wright, because I like him a lot, and the fact that if he were drafted at right tackle, which is his natural position, and you had a problem at left, he could probably be a stopgap there. I think he's going to be a great pickup for somebody. And what are your thoughts? Now he is going to play in the Orange Bowl. I want to be clear, but he is going. He had one season left because of the COVID year where he could have come back. But I think he made the right decision. I can't argue with him going to the NFL now.
Yeah, neither can I. I mean, I think he bends naturally well. I mean, he's got really good feet. Um, I do think he's got some ability to play left tackle, but I think he's probably better on the right side at the next level. And in the pro game where you need to protect both blind sides with a lot of excuse me, both sides and not just the blind side, that I think he could be a really good fit. I am a little bit just to tell you where I am with it. I'm a little bit nervous about him playing in the bowl game because I mean I'm happy that he's playing but I'm praying that he doesn't get hurt. I mean, if you're going to prepare for the draft, most guys are saying, I'm going to do that. And it's just as I said, well, then it's an opportunity to play some other younger guys in a game that, again, is not going to affect, I mean, if you're concerned about where they're going to be ranked in the final rankings after the bowl game, I don't think that, this is to me a little bit, um, worrisome that he doesn't get injured and affect his draft stock in this game. So it's kind of where I've gone along with it. In other words, I'm kind of more you're in, you're out, you're out. If you're coming back, that's one thing. If you're going to go out for the draft, then probably it's best to move on. But I admire him for playing, and I'm glad he's going to play, and I'm just hopeful that he doesn't get injured. Let me just say this too, because you brought up something I think that's really when talking about with Cedric. What I am hearing a lot of, and what I would like to throw out there, because I have said this to another different forums, not on the air, but I think certainly airworthy, is if you're not an elite prospect, meaning you're not going to go in the top half of the first round, it is something that I think players are going to continue to explore and should explore. If I can come back and improve my draft stock and I can get a really good NIL deal, I mean, if I'm going to be a second or third round pick, fourth round pick, if I can get 75,000 to 100,000 in an NIL deal on top of, free education and everything, then I mean, I think that's an alternative that they've not had before. So hey, look, I can improve my stock, but I can make, decent money, not life-changing money, but decent money for a year. It's something I would consider. The problem I'm seeing with a lot of guys, and I'm not talking about anybody on Tennessee, but in general, some other guys. When you see these guys saying they're coming out for the draft, a lot of them have no choice. Stop going to school. They're not academically eligible. So they're coming out not for the draft. They're coming out. They're going to give it a shot. Some of them that look, at least for me, when I see them, and I say, this guy is not a draft prospect. He won't get drafted. And there's some of them out there that have declared, and I'm like, I immediately know they stopped going to class, they don't like school, and they got no option. Uh, or they got some really bad advice, and it could be either. But I think those are the dynamics that it relates to coming out for the draft, not the transfer portal, obviously, but because that's where the transcripts and the academics do factor in.
Chris, I don't blindside you with this guy, so I'm not sure if you've scouted him or not. My apologies. But Ryan Carter, the one thing he said that I thought was significant is Tennessee felt more like home than Alabama. This looks like a recruiting win over Alabama.
Yes.
I don't know how much you've seen him, but these are the type of wins that Tennessee has to have to get to the next step. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there's no question. He is an explosive talent. He's a playmaker. Um, he's got really good instincts. Um, I think he can be a guy that could be a really good pursuit player. I mean, he runs very well. I think he's got good balance. He's got good change of direction, and he is a guy that I've mentioned it before, and I've always looked at this as guys that can be difference makers or guys that they see as maybe a fit for them that they're trying to develop. This guy is potential difference maker. He's got that type of ability. He's the type of guy that Alabama recruits and usually gets. Alabama's got like, I don't use the terminology, but I use it for people to know they've got like 21 4 stars in their
Wow.
class, and the rest 5 stars. This is a guy that they'd like to add to their class, so that's a good get for them. It's a difference maker get. They need more of them like that if they're going to compete with Georgia and Alabama, but it's one step at a time. They're not recruiting to the same level. In fact, I'm doing a series on LandryFootball.com, the Landry Football Podcast Network, of breaking down all the recruiting classes and kind of looking at how many top 300 level prospects that you have. And Tennessee's, not quite to double digits, but this is a guy that can make a difference with that type of an impact player.
Interesting stuff. We'll see if Tennessee can continue that momentum into the offseason. Obviously, a huge 2022 season for them. Brought to you by Alice Nest Barbecue. They have the expertise and they have the rubs and the sauces at Alice Nest Barbecue where you're going to be able to step in. They're going to say, what kind of flavor do you like? They're going to tell you, and you're good to go. Alice Nest Barbecue also has the Green Mountain Grills. We love those. And Alice Nest Barbecue brings you Chalk Talk with Chris Landry each and every week. So he is Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.